Okay, guys. So, Sam, by the way, is in the chat. Sam's our head of marketing, head of CRM, who is moderating the chat for us today. And what I'd like to do is just start by sort of, if you can just familiarize yourself with where the chat is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my talk, and I'm going to keep the chat window open, and I'd like people to fire questions in whenever they see something that's relevant or they've got a question around. And what I'll do is I'll collate them, or Sam will collate them, and then ask them on your behalf, so you don't feel under pressure or on the spot at the end, and we can fire as many questions in as you want, and don't feel like the spotlight is on you. So just ask. There's no such thing as stupid questions. So don't worry about that. Okay, right, let's get going. So how to adapt your marketing during a crisis. Obviously, this is a burning topic right at this moment in time, and everybody's sort of questioning whether they're doing the right things, or whether there's other things that they should be doing, or whatever it may be. And the point, we've collaborated with a number of different marketeers on this piece, which is why it's taken us a little bit longer than we'd have hoped, actually. But we think it's really, really good content. My delivery of that content is always going to be in question, but I think ultimately the content is good. So bear with me. And the good news is as well, at the end of the webinar, there's a QR code. You just bring up your smartphone, you can scan it and download all the slides. So let's get going. So the warning, there is a warning on this one, and I'd like to prefix it with the fact that this is a vast topic. I'm trying to condense it down to sort of 20-25 minutes, and then we can have a good questions and answers afterwards, and then you can get out and enjoy your lunch breaks or whatever you want to do for the rest of the day. Now, one thing that I will note is my slides tend to be quite wordy, and there's a reason for that, and that I need this to be something that you can download and it makes sense afterwards. So I don't just read from the screen, but I want you to know that you can download it and you can take the essence away. So I'm trying very, very hardest to make sure that it's useful after today. The video as well will be posted online, so you can download the video at any time and watch back if there's anything, or ask us questions in the future. It doesn't matter. Okay, so going back to the point that it's a big topic, there's lots of things to discuss here. And as I say, with most of any of the webinars I do, any of the talks that I do, it's, look, my objective for you guys is to take one thing as a minimum. Just take one thing. If I say one thing that's helpful, you've had a win out of this 20, 30, 40 minutes, however long I ramble on for. So remember that. You don't have to take the whole lot, just take one thing. The other thing that I'd like to note is, look, I also want you to take on board the concept here and what I'm trying to achieve. Whilst I'm trying to spread positivity and I'm trying to understand how you can adapt, but I am absolutely sympathetic to the situation that a lot of people have found themselves in. Absolutely, a lot of marketeers that we've spoken to have either been furloughed, potentially facing redundancy, or have even worse, lost somebody as a result of this pandemic. So please don't think that for a second I'm trying to make light of this. I want you to understand that this is just our opportunity to try and seize the opportunity. So it's not profiteering in the face of a crisis. It's about trying to safeguard our revenue and our business so the economy can grow forwards. Okay, so we've got an index, and the index is what we're going to run through today. Just cast your eyes over that. Don't need to talk about that. It is what it is. Lots of important things to run through, but we're going to get cracking. And the problem, so I'd like to start by sort of empathizing with a problem that you guys face at the moment, and that is that in these uncertain times, I definitely understand that running a campaign is perhaps one of the last things on your mind. And actually what we do as marketeers is we sort of revert back to our sort of uneducated approaches of what we class as tactical communication. So I'm probably, as a marketeer, if I was to think back to my training, my most optimum period in time, am I embracing the techniques and things that I did at that time? So whilst I understand that it's a very difficult time for us right now, I also need you to recognize that actually now is the time to be at your optimum. And one of the things that sort of corroborates that point is the fact that digital engagement, obviously we as a platform monitor engagement across the web. Digital engagement right now is up 180%. Email server volume is up 220%. So let's just take that for a moment. That means that it's a lot harder now to get into the inbox, and there is a lot more noise for your message to get lost in. So let's put that in the context of Christmas. Christmas, we expect a 160 to 170% increase and digital engagement of 200. So we right now, in terms of a digital footprint, are bigger than Christmas. Now, again, I don't want to, referring to my previous statement, I'm sympathetic of the situation, but understand what's happening out there, and that is critical. So it's a lot harder right now. It's not impossible to transact, and I do understand that certain businesses physically can't transact at the moment, but there are things that we can do to win the hearts and minds of our consumers. So a quick note from the great man himself. When Lisa commented on the Chinese, that the Chinese have the same word for crisis opportunity, it's absolutely right. It's I don't know what the word is. I've no idea what the word is, and I know it's not crisis-opportunity, but what I do know is that it's actually, what I've just shown you now is, it says that there is an opportunity there. And it is down to the marketeer to try and understand what that opportunity is and adapt and deliver messaging to relate to that opportunity. So where is the opportunity, or what's the opportunity? So the ONS recently published a forecast scenario. And the forecast scenario in this instance doesn't give a best and worst case position. It was just the prediction. It may have been revised in the recent weeks, days, I don't know. But one thing I do know is this was extracted about maybe 6 days ago from the ONS's website. And what it does is the blue line shows that actually we were actually entering into a bit of a recession before the pandemic. So if businesses were succeeding at the back end of Q4, they were actually doing so in light of us entering into a bit of a mini recession anyway. We're currently sat at about 35% down on where, from a GDP perspective, on where the economy expects to be. But the point that I want to make here is this. So this line here demonstrates that our boom, and I've got to use that word very, very carefully, because not every industry, not every business can experience that boom. I'm aware hospitality is struggling right now. But what this is telling us is the fact that the ONS believe that the recovery is going to be rapid, extremely rapid. And let's go back to the framing of this position a moment ago. We're at 220% mail server volume right now. God only knows where we'll be when this boom starts to kick off. Now, understand that the boom, actually, the narrative to the chart on the website was that this is not to scale. It's largely accurate, but that is slightly smaller than the volume of that, which means that the recovery isn't going to be 100%. They actually went on to recommend that a 6% retraction in the economy is likely by the end of the year. So what that's saying is that smart businesses, businesses that understand the opportunity and understand that this window is finite and that this window is your opportunity to recover, they will succeed. Businesses that carry on doing what they were doing before the pandemic, carry on using the same old-fashioned ways, whatever it may be, they will be the ones that are the victims of this situation. And we hope that's not you guys. So let's move on very quickly. That picture was echoed across the world. So if there's any marketeers responsible for global marketing, that picture was echoed across the world. The stats that were pulled together by Deutsche Bank were actually a little bit more detailed and gave a best and a worst case scenario. But it doesn't matter where it is, the dip follows an up. So this was always going to be a V-shaped recession, as they say. And the point here is that as long as we can understand that's the picture we're expecting as marketeers, we can start to inform the business and inform our strategies on the back of that. So very important. I'm going to move down a bit. What that's telling me is that right now is the time. So despite what we see on the surface, everything looks very negative, but the decisions for the return to normalcy are already being made. And I want to put this in perspective as from a consumer and a B2B perspective. So as a family man, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this position, but during this lockdown, I've seen actually a lot of wonderful things. I've had better relationships with my kids. I've had more time for exercise and all sorts of wonderful things like this. But as a family man, I've started to build a plan in my mind to what I'm going to do when things do return. So the decisions are already being made for that boom. So as a marketeer, again, not embracing that fact is extremely dangerous. So I already know where I want to take the kids for the day trips. I already know the treat that I want to give to my wife for being such a wonderful person during this period. All of these wonderful things, I've already made my mind up. And this was your opportunity to talk to me, even if I can't transact today. The second thing from a business perspective is understand the government stimulus packages. This was a really, really smart move. And I know they've come under some fire as to the way that the furlough scheme was created and the CBILS packages aren't getting out to business yet. But the government stimulus packages were all about creating cash. And the P&L of most businesses across the world has been smashed to the floor. So if a business is generating profit right now, well done. If not, it doesn't matter, because as Theo Paphitis famously said, P&L's like cancer, it will kill you over a long period of time. Cash is like being hit by a bus whilst you're having a heart attack. And that's the reality, and the government recognized that. So what that does is it tells us that in a B2B environment, businesses are going to have cash to dig themselves out of this hole. If the VAT payments have been deferred, the PAYE payments have been deferred, the furlough scheme has been utilised, the CBIL loan schemes, businesses are going to be having a lot more cash around them that's going to help them transact out of this problem, which means more effective marketing, which means more product development, which means more innovation, all these wonderful things that make an economy go boom. So it's a really, really smart play by the government. You know, there's probably been criticism for various little niggles and tweaks about PPE, but that bit was smart. So let's hope that in the boom time, the businesses start to release the wallet and deploy that cash into industry. Okay, so we're starting to, we're framing the picture a little bit now. We're starting to hopefully understand what's going on about the pandemic. But with all of my speeches, talks, lectures, whatever you want to call them, rants, I've got some ground rules as a marketeer, and these are really important ground rules. And this right now, this time is about optimizing. This time is about being the best you can be. And the first rule that I always say is you must become energized and passionate with a little dose of empathy. And empathy says, or empathy basically means I can relate to the people that I'm talking to. I can relate to their emotions. I can relate to their position. So I've got to be passionate. I've got to be energized. The second point is I cannot stand for second best. As a marketeer, I might be working with teams around me that are providing me content, creative. I might be creating the content. I might be creating the creative. It doesn't matter. Got to be more Gordon Ramsay. And what that says to me is, are we appraising our work, looking what we're doing, looking at what we're outputting to the world and saying, I'm blooming proud of that, because that's what Gordon Ramsay does, allegedly, or have us believe, for every table, every plate of food he ever serves, it's to his high standards. And that's why he's successful. So are we as marketeers embracing that particular principle? I do. I'm absolutely passionate about it. If it's not good enough, it doesn't go, and we do it again. So the next thing is my famous, probably not famous, famous to me, the squint test. And the squint test is one of those things that I always do when I'm appraising artwork. And what the squint test basically does is it says, right, sit back in your chair, put in front of you on your screen an email, some creative, a paid search ad, banner, ad, DM, whatever on your screen. Sit back, look at it and squint. And as you do that, what you'll find is that will give you a similar kind of indication as the level of effort and commitment that a user will give that, or a prospect or a customer will give that piece of creative. Now, if when I'm sat in that position and I'm receiving the information, it's loud and clear, there you go, great, you've hit the brief. If you sit back, you look at your creative, you look at your campaign, you look at whatever it is, and I don't get it. There's lots of words on there, I don't get it. Bin it, start again, rethink, go back to the drawing board, because right now it's so important in this heightened state of volume. We have to get cut through, and without that cut through, without performing these things, without embodying this, I can't do that. I can't do that. And these are the things they don't really teach you at university, college, or whatever you went through to become a marketeer, industry. These are the things that matter. And there's one final point really on that. I am the difference. I am the glue. I am the magic, and I am the energy. It is proven that businesses that are marketing led are more successful than businesses that aren't. This change occurred about 10 years ago. brand is so important now. The way that I communicate with my customers, the way that I embody my brand principles are so important, and that's led by the marketeer. And even if your organization does not yet recognize this, you must. You guys have to, because you are the difference. You are the glue and you are the magic. And if you believe that about yourself, people around you will start to believe that as well. So I'm really positive about that. And one of the first things that I did when I took over as marketing director at Force 24 was I made sure everybody bought into that principle. So the next little tip really, before we get into the meat of what we're talking about here, is, as a little tip here, what we've noticed is a lot of marketeers, and not a lot actually, it's probably a smaller percentage of marketeers, are aligning with the pandemic. Now, I'm going to say these words to you and I'm going to leave it there and I'm going to refer back to this. The words are, don't align with the pandemic. Align with the opportunity and sympathize with the pandemic. And I'll come back to that because it echoes, and I want you to just absorb those words, think about it, and then we'll come back to this throughout the chat. Okay, so what is the answer? So I'm stood here saying that we think we have a way that we can adapt our marketing during a crisis. So what is it? What do you recommend? And the first thing is, in a time of heightened activity, increased marketing noise, we need to ensure our own marketing efforts are on point, fully optimized and well thought out. What is the answer? The answer is integrated campaigns. Now, why does that sound like such a sales pitch? It shouldn't, because actually what I'm saying here is I understand that as marketeers, we are in the middle of stakeholders within the business, directors, whoever it may be, ourselves and our customers and our prospects, okay? So within the business, things don't change all the time. Sometimes they do, sometimes you get new products, sometimes there's innovation, sometimes there's new ways of talking about things, it doesn't matter. But on this side of the fence, things change by the hour. Things change in the consumer world by the hour, in the B2B world by the hour. So my job as a marketeer is to sit in the middle, consume content from a stakeholder, consider that within the context of the audience and distribute. So how do I do that? So when I'm being pressured from a stakeholder, or I'm being pressured by sales, more leads, whatever the pressure may be, I need something to hang my hat on. And we believe campaigns, as an old-fashioned marketing principle, are the way to do this. So well, I'll tell you what, let's move on. So in short, we know what a campaign is, right? We've been in this game for weeks, days, years, decades, whatever. In short, a campaign is a single focal message conveyed over multiple direct and indirect channels to an audience. It's the lazy marketeer's dream. So why is that the answer? Because it gives meaning and purpose to everything I do. So I'm sat here, and my tip really for this at this stage is, you got to understand, even though the campaign may only exist in your mind and your head, if you're an independent marketer working on your own, the campaign may exist only for you. But you're applying those campaign principles as the stakeholders are providing content, as the sales team are pushing you for more leads. You're applying those campaign principles and you're talking to these guys about something you know, as an empathetic marketeer, they are going to be interested in. So understand that what I'm saying here is optimization is key. And the way that we optimize is through a campaign. So this is a new way of looking at our campaign. So to give you a little bit more insight here, we've developed a few methodologies, and I am a process guy. I love process. I hate having to think of things every day. I like to be able to revert back to my framework, my list of options that I've got to follow or whatever, and I follow a methodology. So we've done loads of these methodologies, and you can just have them. And the first one is our PLUS methodology, and that is if we're creating a campaign, and even if it just exists in our head, or it may be a more formal campaign, we have to use the PLUS methodology, and that says everything that I'm executing during this campaign period to these people must contain persistence. The messages are connected and carry a persistent theme, linked. They all must be linked, all mediums, social media, email, direct mail, phone, if you can get the sales team to buy in, all linked to this persistent message. They must be uniform. All messages are supportive and reinforce a persistent message. I'm going to show you how we aligned this, by the way, to our stuff in a moment. Supportive and synergistic. So that says each individual communication adds up to a value much greater. Because what I'm trying to do is trying to instill brand messaging. I'm trying to get you to think about taking your kids to my amusement park when things return to normal. I'm trying to win your heart and your mind. And I can only do that by leveraging the assets that we've got behind us. So the Plus methodology was something that we created to try and help us just sense check stuff. The next thing is, or the first step really in the journey, is identifying the opportunity. We know that the economy is going to go through a bit of an upturn for a short while. We know that. So what we've got to do as marketeers is we've got to create that campaign that gives us that rationale to be able to push out to these guys here that are going to be able to sympathize with it, because we understand where they're at. So what we do is we create a killer idea. And the killer idea is all about just having, well, I'll tell you what, killer idea is all about creating just something. So for example, we came up with one, and that was that hashtag you're not alone. So hashtag you're not alone says, look, you guys probably right now are all feeling a little bit isolated, a little bit on your own. You may be having great Skype, Teams, Zoom calls every day with your team, but ultimately for 23 hours of the day, you're probably on your own with your partners or your family, whatever. So we came up with the hashtag you are not alone. And we said, right, okay, that's the opportunity, because we understand where these people are today. The business, on the other hand, well, we're releasing products at the normal rate. And how do they adapt to that? And that's our job in the middle as marketeers to say, look, the you're not alone hashtag gives us loads of angles to talk to our customers about this. So we've got to then sense check our idea. And what we do when we sense check our idea is we check that it's adaptable and multifaceted. And what that means is that you're not alone campaign is it's quite far reaching. We've not penned ourselves into a hole. We've not said that we're going to be talking about the fastest dot matrix printer in the West or something like that, where we can only talk about that product. And that's really it's pinned us into a hole. What we've left it as multifaceted. We can talk about many different things. The main meaning behind this is actually the fact that you're not alone. We offer free training and support for life. And that's what it's about. But when the business is pushing things down to us, saying we've just released this new product, we're saying, okay, you're not alone. We've innovated this that will help you in this time like this. Out you go. You can also sense check your ideas that you create with the sales team. This is an amazing tip that we've learned over the years, and that is the harshest critics within our business are the sales team, because the sales team are the guys that are connected to the customers. They speak daily to people. Same for the support channels. And I need to make sure that you've gone and asked those guys, is this a smart idea for a campaign? Do you think people will get it? Does it resonate? But as an empathetic marketeer, I've got a good understanding, so I should get a good answer from them. Now, before we move on, I want to frame where we've got to. So we've got to the fact that there is a potential upsurge where there's a huge amount of volume. We as marketeers are going about our business, trying to talk to our customers. But I want you to say, is there a wrapper around what you're doing? Is there a wrapper that gives a little bit more meaning to what you do every single day? And if there isn't, there should be, because we as marketeers already know that this improves conversion and it improves efficiency. And I'll come on to that bit in a moment. So step 2, understanding your channels. Now, understanding your channels this is about teaching your granny to suck eggs, really. But again, some of the things that I talk about are not designed to be so far up here, nobody can ever achieve it. It's about just understanding, have we thought about these things? And understanding our channels says we've got 2 channel types, direct, indirect, obviously. Direct we own, that. Email, SMS, that kind of stuff. I choose when to send, everything about the particular execution. Indirect, on the other hand, is where I can buy from somebody a route into the customers. We understand that, we know what it is. But I need to understand these channels a little bit more, because in quite a moment, I come onto what we call a content exposure policy. And that says then how we're going to use those channels to support us in our campaigns. So understanding those campaign channels a little bit more, we should, as a business, all have our own metric here. So this is ours. We don't actually use TV and radio, but we do use paid media. We do use social. So it's about mapping out what your channels, your routes in to talk to your audience are, identifying the cost per 1,000, and commenting on where the strengths and weaknesses of those particular channels are. Again, What this is what's called housekeeping. And housekeeping is one of those things, it's an indirect overhead into my time. And what it does is it's this amongst many other things that we've done, the framework, say, spend an hour here, just do this for us, just map this out, please. And it gets you to just question and challenge one more time. Is that the right thing? Is email always my go-to? Is that the right answer? Should I be looking more at direct mail? What are the strengths of direct mail? Obviously, email is the cheapest, super creative, the most creative of all, the most trackable, traceable, whatever you want to call it, but the lowest conversions of all. So that's quite an important point to understand. All the way up to TV and radio, what are the strengths and weaknesses of my channel? So we understand that. Make sure you do. Okay, the next thing, this is quite an exciting piece really, because this is a bit that's all about optimizing what you do, and it's a tangible you can start to implement right now. So this is messaging framework. We remember the PLUS methodology that I mentioned a moment ago. But the PLUS methodology says all the messages, it would imply that I'm going to be talking over a period of time. So I've got a piece of some content pushed to me by a stakeholder. I need to get that out the door. I need to create my campaign out of it. How am I going to do that? Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to use that PLUS methodology to create a few touches. We know it takes 6 touches on email to actually reach your addressable exposed base. 6 touches. I've got to say it 6 times. Now, how do I do that? So what we did was we created the essence of the human argument. And this is a really, really interesting piece of work. So this took a while to do. We released this about 2 years ago. And this is the essence of a human argument. And it helps a marketeer understand how I talk about something 6 times without being repetitive and covering all areas of the human argument. And the concept that, so the example I always give is, we as individuals, human beings, we do this all day, every day. So we kind of know how to do this, but we don't do it in marketing. So let me put this in the context, right? I'm going to invite you all to the pub, okay? So I'm going to say intro is email 1, intro. Hey, do you want to come to the pub? Simple as that. We're going to the Nag's Head. That's it. The next thing is social proof. Social proof is, oh, John's coming. All of a sudden, going to the pub, John's coming. Next thing is gain. I'll buy you a pint. Buy you a pint. Brilliant. Next thing is fear. When you don't, last time you didn't come to the pub, we went out, we had an amazing time, it was great fun, and you missed out. You just sat at home. It's not what you want to do. 5th piece is logic, where it puts it together and it replays, because not everybody's seen every message. It said, would you like to come to the pub? John's coming. I'll buy you a pint. And you remember what happened last time you didn't come? And the final piece is urgency and loss. And urgency is, you got to do it now. Come on, get your coat, we're off. Loss is what happens if you don't act now. Now, as marketers, let's put this back into your world. One of the things that we can categorically say to you is that the best, highest conversions come from fear and urgency. If you're going to optimize, the fear and urgency have to be the ones that are highly optimized. Now, if you as a marketeer only embrace fear and urgency, think about what that's going to do to your brand. Think about how that's going to damage what you do. The difficulty is, in a marketing world, quite often our product is infinitely available. Let's say, you know, we sell widgets. Well, we can churn widgets out by the billion. It's not a problem. So as a marketeer, somehow I've got to create urgency. How the heck do I do that? How do I do that? And so this is what we as marketeers do. We educate and not sell. We can never sell. We only educate. We may educate to product, but we're still educating. We're not selling. Salespeople sell, e-commerce websites sell, marketeers educate. So what we tend to do, sorry, just allow this chap in. So what we tend to do is we tend to direct our content around being available for a certain period of time. A webinar is a wonderful example of that, because a webinar gives me that natural urgency. I've got my communications coming together, I'm sending my emails, and then when I get to within a few days, I've got urgency to play with. So understand what you've got to do, and I can't possibly comment on each of your industries. I just don't know what industry you're in. There's some wonderful brands that have registered for this sequence. But the point that I'd like to make here is that I have to figure out a way to create urgency. Fear, be very careful with, and the rest of them are positive messaging that we're doing anyway, but put them together and the power is immense. Do one without the other, doesn't work. So remember, don't be negative Nelly. You've got to be positive with your less positive messages. So I love that. That took us a long time to produce, and actually there's a whole guide around that on our website. The next thing is an artwork framework, and this is like a little tip really. And I've related it to email because it's the channel that we understand the best, but it applies to everything you do. In the old days, we used to have a really simple AIDA. Do you remember AIDA? AIDA was attention, interest, desire, action. And we used to design direct mail or print ads with that structure, gave us some structure. Email came along, digital came along, blew that out the water. Now, what we did then was we thought, well, maybe there's a new principle that we should start to distribute. And we believe there is. It's AIAD/TIA. Really compelling, yeah, and it rolls off the tongue, I get that. But we do think that the attention should be prominent. Yes, we think the interest should be prominent. The action should be prominent. The desire/trampoline, that's interesting. So what's a trampoline? So a trampoline, basically, within my artwork, within whatever I'm doing, bounces the user either straight through or back up to a CTA. So if my CTA lives in the body of my email, like it does in this instance, the trampoline goes boop, so I come back up. Digital, people go down, it's hard to get them back up, and you do that through trampoline imagery. We then go on and say, look, you can then supplement with additional interest and action below, because the rules here say that you should have no more than 10 words. You should have no more than 2 paragraphs. And if I can adopt that principle for my email, and you may say, oh, well, it's a newsletter email, and we do our newsletter emails like this. Still the same applies. I may have different articles, but I've got 10 words, I've got 2 paragraphs, and I never go multi-column, never. I always go down. Multi-column splits disrupts, sorry, I'm sure it's in here somewhere. No, I must have got rid of it. Multi-column disrupts the message hierarchy and confuses the users and reduces conversion. So if we want to get people into our newsletters, into the website, into the blog, into whatever it is, we have to follow this principle. And it's the most effective and most efficient route in. And if there's multiple articles in there, we can condense this down and we can display it in smaller points, but never go side by side because that disrupts the message hierarchy. Okay. So to recap, we get the ground rules, we've defined our channels, we've established a messaging framework. Let's move on now. Messaging delivery optimization. So this is how do I optimize what I'm saying. Done all this wonderful creative stuff. I've done all this campaign methodology. Got to get it out the door though. So we know that actually where we go out the door is it's not as easy as we first think. It sounds really easy, but actually getting people to engage and getting things to happen is quite difficult. That's the art of the marketeer. Incidentally, one of the things that I often talk about at this point is the fact that a comedian on stage, for example, is a similar job to a marketeer. He's conveying content from his head into the audience. He has this wonderful metric in front of him, and that is the laughter of everybody in the room. You, on the other hand, have a much bigger audience than they could ever wish for, even when I can't think of a comedian right now off the top of my head, but even when a really famous comedian stands up in the First Direct Arena and talking to 10,000 people, marketeers on the whole talk to more than that every day. Not all marketeers, obviously some people have got much tighter, much smaller audiences, but the point is, I don't have that laughter in front of me. So I have to be able to optimize my messaging without listening to the laughter. Hopefully not laughter in our instance. So one of the things that I've got to do is I've got to design a central point. Okay, so this is big. This is one of the things that we found in Force 24, which is a sort of monumental upgrade, if you like, in the way that we operate. So essentially what it says is that we've got to have a destination. So the content got produced by the stakeholder, or the direction was produced by the stakeholder. We need to sell more of this. Okay, run it through my campaign head. Outcomes, that's what I'm going to say, that's how I'm going to align it to my current campaign, that's what I'm going to, out it goes. The big problem then is, what are marketeers doing to get them back in, and where is that back in? Where do we want them to go? So I would, if I could see a show of hands, it'd be interesting to see, but what we do find is most marketeers are sending people back to websites, back to blogs, and in the minority, people using landing pages. Now, why is that a problem for us? Well, if I'm sending you if I'm sending my contacts, my prospects, my customers, messages, well thought out, well constructed messages, and I'm directing that traffic back to the website, I can expect that website to convert at 2, 3%, if you are killing it, 5%. But that is insane. If I'm sending my traffic to a blog on average converts at 1/10 of the conversion of the normal website. So bear that in mind. If I'm directing traffic through a paid for source, through one of the indirect channels to a blog, I'm burning cash. So that's a really important thing for me to recognize at this stage. So I've always got to consider where we're going and make sure that the journey is optimized, because I can actually expect a 10% return from a landing page, a campaign specific landing page. You go one step further than that and you come into a product like Force 24, you can do dynamic landing pages which adapt to the people that are looking at them, where we can see 20% increase, but that's obviously a sales pitch. So, but the point that I want to make here is that within our marketing team, one of the things that I instigated when I became marketing director a few years ago was, we've got to kill the complexity. I need to be able to build an email in 5 minutes, and I need to be able to build a landing page, get this, within no more than 15 minutes. So if I'm producing content, stakeholder, campaign, out the door, I need 15 minutes to take that artwork and put it into the website, and off we go. So that means I've got to do some prep beforehand for my campaign to get my assets ready. So all I've got to do is just load the content in and out it goes. So I become a lot more efficient, but then I get the benefit of the conversions of the back end. And I assure you, this is monumental. It really is, in terms of the way that the Force 24 marketing has adapted. It's monumental. Obviously, sales pitch coming up right now. You've got to embrace marketing automation. Now, I'm not just saying that. Obviously, you know, as the MD of a marketing automation platform, we've been going 10 years. We've got 4,000 marketeers, just like you guys, using our platform every day, and we give them all free training and support for life on a 2-minute SLA. So you can do this. But why should I do this? Well, I tell you why. Because as a marketeer, if I am not disconnected from the marketing wheels, I am ineffective. And what that means is, and the question you have to ask yourself is, do I execute the campaigns, or does somebody in my team have to execute every one of the campaigns? Do I actually have to press send? Obviously, we've got to write the content, we've got to build the emails, etc., and the banner ads or whatever it is. But do I press send? And if I am pressing send, if I am messing around with Excel spreadsheets, loading them up into, I don't know, not wishing to slam a competitor, but MailChimp, for example, if I'm loading to that, I've lost the plot, because the marketeers that are disconnected from the wheels do things like this: build journeys in advance, execute and swap the templates out, execute within minutes. So all of a sudden you're coming up against, in this peak where the marketing noise is reaching a phenomenal hiatus, we have to be effective. And if I am still pressing send on individual email campaigns and then pulling the data down and then looking at it or whatever, I've lost it. Because this very short term that's coming up, where the volume is, it's critical that I've planned it and prepped it now. And that when it comes to it, I just execute. And that is what it's all about. So really, I am passionate about it. Obviously, that was why I was one of the founders of Force 24. That is why we created this product, because that connected to the wheels means I can't be as effective. Anyway, so next point is, in a time of heightened engagement, it is not just the responsibility of the email service platform provider, whatever, to get your emails in the inbox. No, sir, it is not. It is your responsibility with theirs. In fact, the balance in our forums now is about 70% on the marketeer, 30% on the platform. And understand this, 220% increase. Spam keywords evolve by the day. Okay, so this is something that we've noticed a lot of marketers hurting because of. Spam keywords are not a consistent. They're, you know, free trial, Viagra and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, of course, they're always going to be bad. But the point is, mail volume is analyzed by the second. And by the second, new words, new phrases evolve that become dangerous to our campaigns. So go back to my point before, aligning with the pandemic's difficult because I'm using words like COVID-19, coronavirus, pandemic. Obviously, what the mail server's objective to do when they're preventing spam from arriving at their consumers' mailbox is to protect them. Protect them. Is this spam? On what authority are you talking to me about coronavirus? You know, and the reality of it is what we saw was in the recent weeks, and the list is much longer than those 3 examples, but in the recent weeks, we've seen this sort of proliferation of new words like, whoa, that's really scary. Now, obviously, as a customer, we can impart that information, that knowledge, and keep you engaged with what's going on, because that's why we give free training and support on a 2-minute SLA, so we can do that. Engaged and unengaged deliverability strategies. This is such a clever and so obvious when you think about it. Delivering engaged contacts first. So I tell you what, I'll skip that one out because the next slide talks about it. The next thing is I've got to be engaging. When I look at my emails, when I look at an email that I've delivered, I've got to look at it and think, would I have clicked on that? So this is the empathy in me. This is the empathy that's saying, I can put myself in your shoes, sat at home right now as a marketeer, working in a very difficult and challenging time. Am I going to engage with that? So be engaging, and you must be able to do that. If you wouldn't have clicked on it, you can't expect anybody else to. But if you couldn't have found the button to download the goodies or get the magic out of it, nobody else will. So let's talk a little bit more about this engaged, unengaged delivery strategies. This is big. Again, automation obviously makes this a lot easier. What essentially we're saying here is that when we're sending our emails out, and of course emails it's a very important topic to discuss. When we're sending our emails out to our user base, what we're doing is we're layering it. And we're saying, okay, the hottest prospects, those that have been engaging with us recently, within the last few weeks, opening and clicking our emails, they're going to go first. So we say, okay, are you engaged? Yes, instantly send the email to these guys. And that forms a nice warm bed for that email. Then what we do is we do what's called throttling. So we then impose a delivery speed restriction on the remainder of the data. So I'd like to think that 30 to 40, maybe even 50% of my base is engaged. Great. The rest gets delivered slowly over a period of time. Now, if I've got a sale starting in 5 minutes, obviously that's a very difficult thing to do. But the point is, if we can, we should do this layered delivery strategy. All of a sudden, open rates, up through the roof. Why? Because you're building a sensible relationship first with the mail servers, and then you're slowly delivering in. You're showing control and restraint. Obviously, audience segmentation, it's what automation's all about. It's removing people that aren't engaging. You know, I see people all the time, they're sending out 20,000 emails a week, a month, or whatever. And then you say, okay, of that 20,000, how many of that 20,000 have never opened an email in the last year? They say, oh, well, let's have a look. Probably can't do that, but let's assume that they can. Might be 5,000. So why send to them? Because every one of those 5,000 that you send to diminishes the quality of the 15,000 that are engaging. So we've got to be smart with this stuff because they've not added any value to our business. That 5,000 people, they didn't add any value, so strip them. And we do, as marketeers, we do sort of hold on to these flagship numbers, you know, and it's like, no, if it's not adding value, not adding business, it's just adding cost. Let's get rid. And I would like it if somebody asks a question around that. Please think of something intelligent. The next thing is commoditizing artwork. I said a moment ago, I give 5 minutes to produce an email. Obviously, the words take longer to craft, and you know, I don't expect you to write emails really quickly. What I mean is you spend your time in Microsoft Word planning what you're going to do, or you know, you get a creative team to plan what you're going to do, but you execute it in 5 minutes. And one of the ways that we do that is we commoditize our artwork. And commoditizing our artwork says, we've got something that works. We've got our campaign. This is our campaign that we're executing, and we commoditize the batch of artwork, and we're now just going to fit the content to that artwork, all following that message delivery framework that we gave before, the AIDAT/whatever. And look, what we're doing is we're just changing the content, change the colors of things, by all means, if it's one of your brand colors, but we keep it simple. And that means that I can send 6 emails over the course of the next 4 or 5 weeks without breaking my back. I can do it quickly because I've commoditized the artwork. All I need to do is supply a new image here, new text here, take me 10 minutes, boom, I've done 5 emails. That's wonderful. That's what we want to see. So the next thing, as I mentioned before, about killing the complexity. The complexity, I mean, a huge percentage of the audience now is on mobile. Obviously, mobile doesn't like columns. So what's the point? Just go single column everything. It means you build it quicker. And it means that when it arrives in the inbox, the device isn't having to make some clever stacking decisions as to how it should all arrive. This is what's called mobile first. So I know it sounds like the world's changing and perhaps we don't want to embrace it, but it doesn't matter. That's absolutely what we should do. Make it simple for ourselves. Kill the complexity. Okay. So remember the squint test. Don't stand for artwork you're not proud of. You'll be so pleased to know we are coming to the end. It won't be long now, just a few more moments, but I do want to talk about a very geeky subject, which is our content exposure policy. So let's imagine we are where we are now, and we have produced in our heads, we've created a mental campaign. We understand that that's what our customers want to hear about right now. So we're gonna ask for content around that, or we're going to adapt the content that's coming to us to talk about what they're interested in. The next thing that I need to do is understand my content exposure policy. And that says, how many times can I sweat this particular asset before people either get annoyed or unsubscribe? But is balanced with me getting ROI on the time that I actually spent. So this is the Force 24 content exposure policy. Like I said, I love frameworks. I love anything that gives me a plan for my day. I know what I've got to do, and the business knows what I've got to do because we've already agreed this. This is what we're going to do. And it says, look, these are the kind of things that we do. We do SEO content, we do high value blogs, we do low value downloads, high value content downloads, product launches, and commercial events. Now, if we're doing a commercial event, what should we be doing? Well, should we gate it? Gate it means we put a form in front. And actually, I think, funnily enough, I think that is actually a yes in the true content exposure policy. So this is obviously just a graphic, but so it should be gated. So people have to type their names in before they get to access the event. There should be, we can use SMS here. Why not? Let's use SMS to remind people of the event. We should send 6 emails, and get this bit, 18 minimum, 18 social media posts to support those 6 emails. Remembering the plus methodology, everything's synergistic, and everything should be delivered at times. So I've got 18 social media posts all talking about the same thing. Now, the beautiful thing about social media posts is, talk about commoditizing the artwork. I can do this within about 5 minutes. A social media post takes me minutes. So I can do 18 in literally no time. So, but if I plan it out, Microsoft Word it, blah, 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 that's what I'm going to say then. That'll support that email. That'll support that direct mail piece, blah, 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 blah. 18 pieces. Now, I could talk to you about SoAmply, a product that we own and we released a few years ago, but SoAmply is essentially an employee advocacy platform. And it says those 18 social media posts that you put in, a little bit like Hootsuite, where it goes and you put it in one place and it sends it to all the various channels. Wonderful, great, but that's useless. Not useless, it's limited value. But the point is, I've got 50 sales guys, and each one of those 50 sales guys gets each one of those posts that I've put in into their SoAmply interface, and they also send them out to their networks. That's cool, because all of a sudden you've gone from talking to my little pot on social media to talking to the whole company's pot on social media. The results are insane. So you absolutely have to look at that product. It's called SoAmply. The next thing that I want to talk about is, what should I be doing from a reporting point of view during this time of crisis? So should I be reporting, and what should I be reporting on? And we believe as marketeers, my day should consist of, and I hate this because it's the bit that I hate the most, 25% of my effort should be on reporting and analysis. 25%, oh my goodness. That's what we got to do sometimes. Whether we condense it, how we do it, how we play that out, whether we've got clever automation doing it for us, so we're actually only spending 5%. But the fact of the matter is, somebody's got to collate and build reports. But what we're saying is, no, right now, that ain't the case. Do not over-invest time in reporting. obviously you have to analyze the results of paid for and campaigns. Obviously you have to look at them and to see if underperforming paid campaigns get stripped now. You've got to do it. You've got to pull back where you need to pull back. But what I'm saying is, don't be alarmed if open rates are down, up, down, whatever. These stats are only going to serve to skew your thinking when things return to normality. Record them, obviously, record them, but this is not a normal time, so they do not sit within the normal suite of reporting stats. If you have the resource, you have the time, of course you can analyze the stats now in isolation and start to form a new norm. But I would say as a marketeer working in an SME or even a medium-sized enterprise, allocating that time right now to anything other than content and smart thinking is not the answer. So if your marketing department has got slack, please do it. If not, focus on what matters. But just quickly, there is one thing you can do that's quite useful, which is audience segment reporting. And audience segment reporting is a sort of new way of looking at things. And we believe in this again. And it essentially says, stop looking at the individual campaigns as much and look at the data that you're sending the campaigns to. Like the comedian on stage, he's looking at the laughter of the individuals in the audience. Are new people coming into the crowd? Are people going away from the crowd? He's looking at things like that. So what we did at Force 24 was we created a dashboard within our automation platform that makes it easy for you. And one of the things that you do is you look at the lead score of an audience. So you take a data segment and it tracks the average lead score of everybody in that audience. And lead scores are created by people performing actions in association with your brand. And what that does, when I look at that as an average for a segment, is this blue line is a friendship index for my audience. So let me put that into context for a moment. I sent this friendship index, is currently invisible to you right now if you're not a Force 24 customer. If that friendship index has that audience sat right up there and I send them an email, it stands to reason that the response rate for that email will be higher than if I sent the email when the audience was here in some parallel universe. I would have a lower engagement rate. And so the point that I'm making here is the fact that if I'm just looking at email open rates, email click rates, and I'm not considering how the segment, is it the guy on stage looking at his audience, seeing that nobody's laughing, nobody likes what he's saying, that's the friendship index right there. So if I'm just looking at the individual executions, number one, it's hard, really hard for me to put some meaning to it. There's so many variables to any one email. But number two, it actually doesn't mean anything. If I want to increase my open rates, you know what I do? I just strip some of the data that doesn't open my emails and I get a better open rate. And then how's that actually improve the business? Well, okay, you might have improved deliverability a little bit. Yeah, agreed. But how's that actually? So it's a vanity metric is what we say. Email opens are a vanity metric. These are cold, hard data facts. The next thing is the member count. One of the things that I would always say is, as a marketeer, we've got to pay very close attention, especially in times like this, to how my audience is evolving in size. Okay, so sometimes we've got an audience which is managed by new people coming in, salespeople putting people in, new customers buying things, new registrations, whatever. How's that audience growing? Nice to see. But then more importantly, the green line and the red line are showing me how many are active for email, i.e. they've not unsubscribed and they've not bounced. And red is active for SMS. And so as a marketeer, I urge you to think for every email that you send, you will get a bounce rate, you will get an unsubscribe rate. It's a fact of life. But is that unsubscribe rate, is that bounce rate greater than the data collection rate? So you see this blue line here. I want the blue, the red, and the green to grow as in parallel as possible. If I start to see this happening, I can see that the content's not working, or the data, or if it's happening through bounces, then I can see that the data collection mechanisms aren't particularly effective. But I would want you to all say, I can spend 5 minutes and just have build a quick chart. Obviously, the beautiful thing about automation is you don't build quick charts. It's all there for you, so you don't have to do it. But if you can have a think, plot the last 3 weeks, how much new data did you get? When did you get it? What was your bounce and unsubscribe rate during that period? And plot that on a chart like that and just see, do you have a problem? And right now we've seen a very, very interesting position here. And that is that because of the increased volume, you may be seeing a higher number of bounces, and bounces aren't necessarily due to a mailbox not being there. It's sometimes down to the fact that the mail server rejects it as a heightened spam policy, and it doesn't necessarily always reject it with a spam warning. It sometimes rejects it as a permanent fatal error. So sometimes you lose data just because of bad luck, and that's really, that's about mailing practices. Next thing that I always harp on about, and we are so close to the end, I'm so close. 2 slides, I think, last 2. Split test myth. Stop split testing. Please just stop it. Don't do it anymore. Such a bold thing for me to stand up here and say. Split testing is where I go and say, right, okay, I've got these 2 pieces of artwork, or I've got, an artwork, I want to test it. So I'm talking about email here. I'm not talking about GA using online split testing. That's different. I'm talking about email and SMS and direct mail through my direct channels here. And what it says is, if I'm relying on a small sample of my audience to tell me something that me as a marketeer that empathizes with my customers didn't know, it ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. The facts are, if you send out an email and split a small segment, it's not going to tell you anything you as a marketeer didn't already know. And I can hold my hand up and say, for years I've been in marketing, 20 years, I have never once been the beneficiary of some information from a split test that told me something we didn't already suspect. Now, what's the difference between split testing and iterative testing? Iterative testing says I get some robustness in my statistics. I get volume to support my message. So what we do with iterative testing is we say, instead of building 2 of everything, because that's a waste of time, what we're going to do is we're going to build 1 that follows that hypothesis. And we're going to send it to the whole base. And we'll build 2 more and send it to the whole base. And then we'll build another one that follows this hypothesis, and we'll send it to the whole base. And what happens when you do that is you get a real rich seam of data, but more importantly, it stops marketeers doing silly things like split testing subject lines where one word's different. We have to develop a hypothesis around a formula for a subject line, and then I can test it over time. But if I'm just saying, oh, just the word buy now, or in a subject line, is it better than have a look at our sale, whatever. It's what was the essence and reasoning behind that, and build a theory and execute it over time. That's iterative testing. And obviously, the beautiful thing about automation is it can collate all of those tags for you and display them as a single object. In our platform, we say you just tag up the email with the hypothesis and say, I use that hypothesis there, that hypothesis there. And it says, okay, well, I'll collate all of those hypotheses, all of the tags that have used those hypotheses, and give you them as one report. So it makes your life a lot easier. So we've done a lot of work today. We've covered a lot of ground. I've taken up way too much of your time. The good news is we've done. So what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, if you want to open up your smartphones and you open the camera and you point that camera at that QR code, it will immediately pop up with a thing where you can then just go and download these slides. Now, whilst we've been here, I'm going to unmute Sam, my colleague, and Sam is going to ask some of the questions that we've received before the event and during the event. So Sam, can you hear me?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. We've had a couple of questions in chat while you've been speaking. The first one from Pamela. She works for a professional cookery school, and the question was, she has no idea when they'll be able to open again. They're still gently marketing for a new intake in September, with terms and conditions around refunds and going online if things don't shift back to normality. Is it naive to do this, or do we focus on what we know and do what we can?
No, I absolutely agree with your strategy, Pamela. I absolutely think that, firstly, I'm assuming here that the point is that there is nothing you can do now, the online, the Joe Wicks style stuff, and for a paid for subscription. I'm assuming that that's the situation. All we can do here really in this is, like I say, is identify the opportunity, and that's try and win the hearts and the minds of the consumers now. Because when that peak comes, whenever it may be, and it may be staggered for every single industry, we need to recover. So what I always say is in businesses that are physically closed like that right now, it's like the tide. You can hold the tide back for a period of time, but you can't hold it back indefinitely. It will come. So the money that I've been saving by not going to Starbucks, the money, you're going to be opening up new arms, new possibilities, new people that haven't considered you before. So I absolutely think that right now it's not about selling. Yes, okay, I've seen some very clever examples of brands saying that, you know, we'll do 2-for-1s, brilliant, and we'll do free rescheduling if whatever, and that's a really smart play. That's very, very smart. So I definitely agree with that. But it's about, in my opinion, adding value and opening the door, just as we've attempted to do here, to a wider audience that we couldn't have had an audience with before, and trying to spread some love, try and spread some intel, try and spread some, we've got time, so let's do it. So hopefully from the back of this, we've got 430 registrations for this. 430 people now are aware of Force24 and will watch this webinar later on, and that's really positive. So my point of view is, I think what you've done is really smart. I think that's a logical thing to do. You can't expect somebody to sign up to cast iron conditions if it's not possible for them to do it. So it's being open and honest with that. Try to download, I'm getting a 404 error message. That probably sounds like a Rory thing. Could you just ask Rory to just double check that for us?
Yeah, I've tested it. It seems to be working, but we'll send another link out with an email after the webinar. So don't worry.
Okay. Does that help, Pamela? I mean, I'm only really reaffirming what you're doing here, and I'm just sort of saying that I believe that you are doing the right thing, and I do believe that there are things probably in addition that you can do to connect, not just at a commercial level with these people, but connect at an emotional level about what you can do now, how you can help them now, and that's our aim. So,
great.
Thank you, and good luck, Pamela.
Cool. Next question. This one arose when you were talking about the messaging framework, Adam, and the plus methodology. From Sonia. Using this framework, what should the open rate be for most EDMs? And by EDMs, she means electronic direct mails.
Yeah, okay. So, okay, this goes back to my point that I was making before. So an open rate is a vanity metric, and is something that's highly exclusive to your business and your particular audience segment that you're talking to. So I don't really like it when I see certain online platforms saying, here's the industry benchmark reports. It's a load of junk. The reality of it is, if I've got an audience of engaged consumers, and as a marketeer, I'm aggressively stripping unengaged, my open rates are 50, 60, 70%. So it's not possible to say to you, your open rates in your industry should be X. People will try and tell you that, but it's not possible, and it's not smart to do so. So really what I would say for you is, it's about establishing what your norm is, and plotting that norm on a chart that says where my baseline is formed and I'm seeing dips down and up, and start to play with things like the audience segment, the audience segment reporting. So I want to understand whether, if by removing 3,000 contacts and executing the same campaign, do I get a greater number of opens? Not just the open rate, do I get a greater number of opens? And again, experimenting in these ways helps me understand the delivery dynamic. So the delivery dynamic's all about email deliverability, and that's not really a thing that we thought was a part of our job a few years ago, but it really is now. And so if I can start stripping out some of those bad email addresses, and I can establish what my norm is for that audience, and then my next audience, it's going to be totally different. It's going to be, so I don't know, obviously, you know what your business is, but you know, Force24, for example, we've got lots of different streams of audiences. We've got agencies, we've got B2B marketers, we've got B2C marketers, we've got customers. I would always expect my customers to report much higher engagements than my B2B marketers. Just how it is. So I have a normal for that. I have a normal for that. I have a normal for that. And when I see normal dipping, that's when I act. So don't rely on the, you know, I know HubSpot tries to tell us that we can download an email template off their website and we'll start making fortunes. It just isn't about that. It's about what you're doing and how you're empathizing with your customers and how you are analyzing what normal is for your business. So thanks for, I don't know whether I helped you there, Sonia, or not, but I gave an answer nevertheless. Sorry, Sam, go on.
Yep. The next one's a pre-submitted question from Tom. You talk a lot about automation. Do you believe you get a better response from automated campaigns than manual?
Yeah, I mean, this is a time versus benefit. So if I'm automating stuff, you know, the reality of it is I've got on average 8 more hours a week to spend on doing important stuff. If I'm not sit there connected to the wheels, pushing emails out the door, I've got more time to think about things. But actually, then the question was, do you get a better response from automated emails? Yes, and here's why. So when I build automation, robots are never late. They do as they're told on the date and time that they're told. Marketeers are late. They take holidays. They have an off day. They whatever. So when that happens, the overall is maybe you're amazing. Maybe you just nail it every time. And if you do, no, there's no increase. But if you have let the team down once or twice or whatever, that's what gets replaced. But then not to mention the fact that you get the uptake in, you know, so the benefit of the extra time, not standing around managing campaigns. Nobody got into marketing to play with spreadsheets or, I don't know, uploading spreadsheets into an online ESP. Anyway, sorry, yes, Sam, go on.
Yeah. Just had another question come in from Daria in chat. How do we know how many elements we need to add to the campaign workflow so that by the time our initial 40K contacts filters through it, we're not just left with 10?
Yeah, okay, that's actually a really interesting point. So and this is down to a layered campaign approach. So, okay, in Force 24, we have a layered campaign approach, which says, I mean, this is quite techy. It's quite a big question. So you're right. Let's imagine it's a 4-week campaign or a 6-week campaign, and we trigger 40,000 into the campaign. And by each interaction, some have been taken out because they've done it. Some are taken out because they're not interested anymore. So you've got 10,000 that are going through. So what then happens is you've got, say, 2 weeks or so at the end of the campaign where you've got a load of dross going through the campaign. So not a lot of activities coming back to the sales team. Whereas a layered approach says that actually I've got these 2-week staggers. I mean, that's just, and the 2-week staggers say when they move out of that one, I'm going to furlough them for 2 weeks, and then I'm going to trigger them into this one. And then I know this all sounds like extra work. It isn't, because it's what you're doing now, but it just applies some, you know, real smart logic on top of it. But I do totally get your point there. I do understand it. And again, this is the thing. Why we give free training and support for life is, and we've got a 98% client retention rate, because you ask us that question, we'll give you that answer. We'll give you a smart answer and show you how to do it. Tech just from Silicon Valley, wherever, will just let you press the buttons. And this is the bit that I'm so passionate about, is you've got to succeed at this. You know, you've got to do well at this. This isn't just sending emails or SMS messages or direct mail campaigns. You have to be optimized, and optimization comes through the support and help of people in the industry that are watching this all day, every day. So again, a very long-winded answer to a fairly short question, but it's actually quite a very, very good question. So well done for that one. Pleased for that. Sam, are there any more?
That's your lot, yeah.
That's my lot. Perfect. All right, guys. Well, look, there'll be a video circulated with a link. Sorry, an email circulated with a link that you can share this with anybody that you wish. If you've got any comments or any thoughts or suggestions or any questions, please do feel free to either find me on LinkedIn. So my name's Adam Oldfield. I'm the Managing Director of Force 24. Find me on LinkedIn, add me, and feel free to ask, or go along to our website and book a demo, because we've got we're giving the demos that we give away right now are really powerful. It's all about looking at your specific circumstances and trying to align that to the product, rather than just press this button, that happens. So the demos, again, we're really passionate about. So myself and a few of my colleagues sit on that team. So it's it's a really, I think it's a really good team to help you guys. So go to our website, force24.com, and you find the demo. You can also download the price list, and you can also download our brochure, which we call the Quick Pitch. So thank you very much for your time, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'm going to go have a lie down after that. It was a monster, so appreciate it.